Hi, Dr. McCoy here at Drummond Chiropractic. I'm going to go over the top 3 things that's speeding up the aging of your spine. The number 1 thing is when you get out of bed in the morning. So most people, when they're laying down and they get up for the day, the first thing that they do is sit straight up like that. That pressure when you're flexing forward puts a lot of pressure on your disc in the back. And when you're laying down at night, the disc rehydrate and they start to fill up with more water, so they're bigger. So if you go set up straight like that and you already have some disc issues going on, that's going to put even more increased pressure on them, really coming down to a pinch point in that lower back. The best way to get up in the morning is if you're on your back, roll to your side, and then press up with this arm that's down, keeping your torso in line with your hips. That really alleviates the stress and that pinch point on your back. The other way is rolling all the way over to your stomach and then sliding your foot off. Roll over slowly, get onto your stomach, slide over to the edge of the bed, put the leg down, keep a good tight core, press up, and then get off the side of the bed like that. The next thing that we notice patients do that increase the aging process of your spine is when you're reaching for things or doing little things throughout the day where you have to get something off the floor, brushing your teeth, different things like that. The biggest way is you always want to try to take pressure off your back and keep it in an optimal position. So instead of when you're brushing your teeth, leaning forward and kind of hinging like that, or even rounding the spine when you're doing that, you can open up the bottom of the cabinet, put your foot up there like that, bend the knees a little bit and stand up tall to take that pressure off that low back, not just hunching over, creating that pinch point in the low back. The other thing is reaching for things. So when you go to grab something that might be off to the side and you just kind of hinge like this or just go straight over from the hips, more thinking of keeping your tight core and doing more of a hip hinge will really help if you don't have to go all the way through the floor. The big thing what you want to do is, I'm going to show you with the pole here, you want to keep 3 points of contact, imagining that you had this ball on your back when you were reaching for those things. So what you want to do should be touching your butt, your mid back, and the back of your head here. So what you want to do when you hinge forward, keeping that contact, and this is how that you should look when you go to reach for something that may be in front of you and a little bit down. You keep that good core kind of tight through there instead of just reaching for it like that. Really creates that pinch point in that lower back. If you have to go down to the ground to get something, the best way is to keep that deep core, take that big diaphragm breath so it blows out your stomach, go all the way down, squat, come back up instead of just bending over, especially first thing in the morning when you're getting out of your bed, back still might be a little sore. Those discs are still filled with the water from rehydrating the night before. And then if you're moving throughout the house and you have to pick up something heavy, and then when you're picking that up, you feel like you have to hold your breath and brace the whole time, it's probably a little bit too heavy, especially if your back's already agitated. When you're picking things up, even if you take that big breath to get down to the squat to be able to get it, when you come up on your way up, you should be able to blow out and really let that pressure out so you're not putting that strain on your back. So if it is too heavy and you fail, you're not going to create all that pressure going through that spine and the disc in that lower half. And a good little tidbit to remember that is if you can't blow it out your mouth, you're most likely going to blow it out your back with your disc. Another little thing through daily tasks and different things like that that we have patients come in is vacuuming. So most people will just sit here and try to torque your back, moving, twisting side to side, which really puts a lot of torque on that lower back there. So if you step with it, keeping that core in there, not really hinging forward, but just staying kind of closer to you, it might take you longer, but in the long run, you won't be irritating your back when you're really kind of stretching out, reaching for that. So staying close together, doing more kind of short bursts with your foot out will really save your back in the long run. The other thing is if your back is really bad when you're trying to vacuum and do things throughout the house, keep your arm right next to your hip when you're walking around. So let your legs do the work and move side to side just like that. Don't try to kind of stretch out and reach there when your back is already irritated. That'll put a lot of pressure on those discs. The other common thing that we see in the office is shoveling throughout the day that irritates the low back. So what you want to do is the same thing that we talked about with the vacuuming. You want to kind of keep that close to you and move your legs and your torso at the same time. If you're just shoveling and twisting like this and not taking that extra time to step and move your core when you're doing it, that's really going to put a lot of torque on your low back. So keep the shovel close to you, come up, Move shorter movements. Those really short movements will really go a long way in protecting your low back. If you're just grabbing and twisting, that's going to put a lot of strain on there. The other thing that we see is when people are working in the garden, pulling weeds out, the big thing is keeping that tight core when you go down there. So if you're in a chair or on the ground, don't just be kind of twerking and pulling like that. When you go to grab something, take a little bit of a brace, grab what you're going to grab, and then blow out as you're coming up. That'll help take the pressure off your low back, and those shorter movements don't put as much strain and pinch point on those discs. The last thing that we notice that irritates and speeds up the aging process of the spine is when you're in a seated posture. Most people, when they're in a seated posture and it gets kind of late in the day, you just kind of collapse down, which studies have shown being in a seated posture really puts the most pressure on the back. It's not when you're standing, it's not when you're walking, it's when you're in the seated position, and especially slouching forward puts even more pressure on those discs. So some things that you can do throughout the day is paying attention to your shoulders. If you find that your shoulders are down, making sure you're rolling those back every so often. And then every 20-30 minutes, if you have to be seated for a long time, sitting there, doing pelvic tilts where you rock back and forth, different things like that, and then getting up and moving at least once in that hour. Even if it's just a 2-minute break where you get up, walk to the other side of the room, maybe do some of your extension exercises, stretching out the hips, just so you're not stuck in that same position, irritating those same stress points for 7-8 hours a day. That's really going to do a toll on your back over a year, over 20 years, different things like that. That'll really put strain on your disc and your spine and your lower back. And we like to call our patients that have to sit and work at a computer all day, we like to call them our everyday athletes, because they're taxing their body just like the athlete. They're just doing it in a different way and over a longer period. So you're an athlete too, and we can take care of you here at Drummond Chiropractic.